Hi everyone, Happy New Year and welcome back. Today we're going to do some work on a Japanese black pine tree. This tree was acquired as a 1-gallon nursery specimen from an ordinary nursery in 1994 and has been under training and shaping as a bonsai ever since. Right now it's in a state of moderate health. I don't want to say good health. The needles aren't quite as dark green as I'd like because it's gone about 2 years without repotting. One way to check the health of a pine tree is to see if you have a good fungus culture going. And if you look very closely here down at the base of the trunk where I've removed this little stone, you can see the symbiotic fungus growing in there on the roots, and this is a very good sign of the overall health of the tree, that we have a fungus culture coming all the way up to the root base on the tree. Hopefully when we take it out of the pot in a few minutes, we'll find much more fungus growing around the periphery of the root system. But before we do that, I need to prune it back just a little bit. This isn't really going to be a shaping or a structural pruning. Because we're repotting it and going to be pruning the roots, we're going to take off a little bit of foliage so that the foliage mass balances the root mass and that it's necessary for the overall health of the tree. Right now here in California, it's the 2nd of January. We're still in the middle of winter. We're having a fairly nice warm day today, but the tree is still dormant, and it's going to be dormant for another 3 to 4 weeks before the buds start to swell and the candles start emerging. So for right now, let's just take off a little bit of foliage. It's gotten somewhat leggy here over the last growing season. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking off the longest shoots back to last year's needles. You never want to prune back to the 2-year-old needles on a black pine, because if you do, the tree will die back. At this point, we've taken the tree out of the pot. We've finished pruning it back a bit to pull the branches back in contour with the pot. We're going to repot it back in the same pot. What I wanted to show you now is the fungus culture on the roots. I'm going to tilt the tree up a little bit to show you. And you'll look and you see an absolutely beautiful fungus culture going on this pine tree. Now, it's very important that when you make up new soil to repot a tree like this, you remove some of the old roots with the fungus on them and mix it back into the new soil, because if you pot a pine tree without a fungus culture in the soil, the tree is going to lose its health easily and rapidly. What we're doing now is we're cleaning out the roots around the edges of the root mass, and because this tree hasn't been repotted in a while, it's got a very tight mass of roots. So we're going to use a combination of the cultivator and the root saw to tease out and reduce the root mass. One of the things that we did do is we took the fungus from the old roots and we put it back in the pot with the new soil. And that's why we have these old roots in here, because they have the beneficial fungus on them. We also have not washed the inside of the pot, because that would also remove the fungus culture that's around the walls of the pot. So we'll just go back and resume our work on the roots here. And you'll notice we're not going to hose down the root mass or wash the soil off the roots unless we determine that the tree's roots are getting dry and need water, because again, that would compromise the fungus culture that helps keep the tree healthy. What we will do is, where we see the fungus, we will pluck the old roots out by hand and deposit them back in the pot. Again, these roots are going to be dead in here. They're not going to grow back onto the tree, but they will help preserve the fungus culture. Now we just take a root saw for the sake of expediency, and we saw the layer of roots off the bottom of the tree. The reason I can get away with doing this is because I've had this tree so many years and repotted it so many times that I know where all the major roots are, and I know I don't have to go in and go to every root and cut it. I can just thin them out and get it ready for repotting that way. We're not going to do a total soil replacement here. What we're going to do is just do a partial replacement here so that the fungus culture is preserved. You'll notice we now have the tree back in the pot. We've reduced the root mass so that there is an approximate 1-inch gap on all sides between the root mass and the pot. And we've put a layer of new soil in the bottom of the pot with some of the old roots with the symbiotic fungus growing on them. We've also taken the root mass down so that the tree sits a little bit lower in the pot so that a little bit less of the crown is exposed here. That was something we wanted to try to accomplish with this repotting, is to try to hide this in here. And right now we're working just a little bit with the planting angle to make sure we get it right. Let's get these weeds out of the base here. These things are very difficult to keep under control. And we're looking at the front and trying to decide if rotating it just slightly in the pot and bringing it into a bit more of a forward lean might be beneficial. So we'll try that, and we'll shovel some soil in here underneath. And make sure that we don't have any air pockets in here. Now we'll rotate it back around again, make sure it's stable in the pot, and then we'll just start backfilling around the root ball. Now again, I tend to use my fingers to compact the soil in around the sides of the root ball. This is probably the most efficient method. You can also use a chopstick to do this, but that tends to progress a bit more slowly because of the small surface area of the chopstick. Okay, now the tree is pretty well planted back into its pot. And we've got soil up to the tree's crown. We're just going to bring it down here to water it. And there you have it, folks, our repotted Japanese black pine tree.